Alrighty, so what a fight we got here. There's no way it's not going to be exciting, a war. So it's Shane Burgos versus Edson Barboza. Both these guys are huge for 145, and both of them just bring it, honestly. So yeah, we'll get into the striking, because I imagine that's where most of this fight's going to be. So Edson Barboza, he's been around the UFC for a while. I think we know his style pretty well. He comes in with that Muay Thai foundation. He's got pound for pound some of the hardest kicks in the UFC, and his hands are coming along as well. Like, he's improving his boxing recently. Like, he's still making improvements to his game, even at 35 now. And for Shane Burgos, he comes in with that forward pressure. He's got good boxing. He does keep his hands low at pretty much all times though. So he flicks up that jab from awkward angles, but also his hands drop after the jab, and then, that's when he gets hit pretty much every time. He drops his lead hand, opponents will pull back, counter with a 2, and I think that's what Edson Barboza can look for here, because he will throw a straight right over the opponent's jab. He hit Dan Ige with that a few times. I think he dropped Dan Ige with that. So he does have that in his arsenal, but mostly Edson Barboza is about the kicks. He's got a very nice switch body kick against an orthodox opponent, very nice low calf kicks. Burgos is predictable with his movement. He's always going to be moving that lead leg, right where you want it to be if you're a low calf kicker. So I think that could be a huge weapon for him here. But he does have some nice hands as well. He's got a nice check left hook, nice straight right over the jab, as I said before. But if it was just a boxing match, I'd have to give Shane Burgos the advantage. He's got very fluid combinations with his boxing, and he's got very nice counter body rips. He looks to slip your punch and then work the body. And if we know anything about Edson Barboza, it's that he does slow down in fights. Pretty impossible with his physique and the amount of explosion that he uses in his techniques. So, you can't really blame him, but I think that could be absolutely a weapon that Shane Burgos could utilize, just working the body. But Shane Burgos, yeah, as I said before, he does keep those hands low at all times, and especially when he's throwing kicks, he'll throw like naked teeps in range. That could get him caught as well, because he keeps the hands low, nothing to guard his chin. He's not setting up these kicks very often. For the grappling, I don't think there's going to be too much grappling, but Edson he will mix in like a reactive double leg, every now and then. So he could use that here, but I imagine this will be on the feet. I think Shane's going to make him brawl. Alright, so how these guys win fights. So for Shane Burgos, it's the forward pressure, kind of breaks opponents, and also he has great volume, and he has really good cardio as well. He never tires out with the pace that he pushes. And for Edson Barboza, he has good dexterity on his hips. He gets his kicks up like they're nothing, and he has a lot of speed and a lot of power behind his kicks, like, perfect technique. And he has good takedown defense as well. So how these guys lose fights. So for Edson Barboza, it's when he faces heavy pressure fighters, so like Tony, Khabib, Gaethje. But if your pressure isn't heavy, then he's usually able to handle those opponents. I'm talking like Dan Ige, Paul Felder. He'll also slow off the 1.5 rounds in high-paced fights, and Burgos isn't going to slow down. But what Burgos is, as well, is very hittable. He's got his hands low at all times. He will, square his jaw to his opponents at times, kind of turning away from punches, sort of rolling with them, but not really. Just kind of squaring his jaw and then, getting hit flush. You never really want to have your head at 9 degrees. Especially against a power puncher like Edson or Calvin Cater or whatever. But yeah, so also head doesn't move that often. Hands low and head doesn't move, that's just a recipe for disaster, really. And, there's a reason why he's had 3 Fight of the Nights in 8 UFC fights. It's because he takes a lot of damage. He has a good chin and good recoverability, but he's taken a lot of damage in his UFC career, especially in his last fight against Josh Emmett. That was a beat down. Alright, so past the victory for these two. For Burgos, I've kind of been hinting at it. It's just the suffocating pressure. Just be really heavy on the pressure. Don't even give him any space to breathe. Also the occasional switch stance to kind of throw off the reads of Barboza's kicks. If he gets comfortable, if he gets in a rhythm with his kicks, then, you're going to be in trouble. So, look to switch the stance every now and then. Also will kind of nullify a bit of the damage to the lead leg if you're going to be switching a little bit. Has used this game plan in the past. Also, work the body just at all times, pretty much. Teep to the body. Cut the cage off, because when you cut the cage off from him, he will square his stance and circle away, with his lead hand low. So that's how Justin Gaethje caught him, and it's just a tendency that he still has. Even in the Dan Ige fight, he squared his stance on the fence when Dan Ige was pressuring him and was circling to his left, or circling however wherever Dan Ige cut the cage off from him, with his hands low. So I think you can catch him there. Also, just look to tee off with body shots if he just squares his stance on the cage and doesn't really move or doesn't circle away either way. So if he's just going to stand in front of you and just look to plant his feet and bang, look to slip the punch, counter with some body shots. Also, either check the leg kicks or counter with hard combinations when he's throwing the leg kicks. But as I said before, switch the stances up a little bit just to kind of throw the reads off and just make sure you're not taking too much damage to the lead leg. And for Edson Barboza, look for the leg kicks. He's going to be placing that lead leg where you expect it to be, so yeah, look for the leg kicks. Also the pull too. As I said, like every Shane Burgos opponent has success with this technique. Like after he pops the jab out, and he pops the jab out a lot, he drops his hands. So look for the pull too, look to really sit down on it. And also just mix in, a reactive double leg every now and then, just to kind of throw him off the game, make sure he isn't just getting away with the forward pressure for the whole fight, but mostly just to mix things up. Alright, so how I see this fight going. So yeah, what a fantastic matchup by the UFC. Like Burgos is super hittable, but Edson has always had trouble with pressure fighters, so it's such a compelling matchup. I think it's going to be a battle of attrition. And the only way not to take serious damage from Edson on the feet is super heavy pressure. And the pressure needs to be suffocating, or else you're playing into his game, as in you're walking onto his techniques. Like if your pressure isn't suffocating, then he's probably going to beat you. Like Ige, Felder fights, like they're pressure fighters, but they're not suffocating pressure fighters. And I know he lost those fights on paper, but I don't think he really did. I thought he won both those fights, honestly, pretty easily. Like, you got to have Gaethje, Khabib, Tony level pressure. And I would put Burgos in that category, but his strike and defense just isn't on the level of those guys, so he does need to watch out. Like, Edson's cardio and shin looks great at 145, considering I thought it was going to be a horrid, well, I guess it is a horrid weight cut for him. Like, at 35, to cut down to 145 with his frame and his physique is crazy. And it's got to be a terrible weight cut for him. And as for Burgos, I mean, the guy is insanely durable, so I've got him if it's going to be a battle of attrition. Unless Barboza does some serious damage to the legs or the head of Burgos in round 1, I see Burgos either winning rounds 2 or 3 or putting him away in rounds 2 or 3. But overall, I think it's going to be a very competitive fight. Even in round 2, when, Barboza's looking like he's a little bit fatigued, the strike and defense of Shane Burgos is going to keep a fatigued Barboza in the fight. Like, he's still going to be connecting. So I think it's going to be pretty competitive, but I don't think it goes the distance. Alright, let's have a look at the lines. As for the prediction, I am going to go with Shane Burgos. I think he does get it done late. I think he gets it done by TKO. But yeah, it's going to be a great fight. Betting wise, not really looking to bet it. I think the line's about correct. I think it's basically a pick'em. I'd slightly favour Burgos just because his durability. But, if I were to bet anything, it'd probably be Shane Burgos if he doesn't take too much damage in round 1. Like, if he doesn't get 10-8'd and he didn't take too much damage to the legs, then I'd probably look to live bet him if the line's a reasonable price, like if he's the underdog or what have you. And Edson does look like he's slowing down a little bit and the pace was fairly high, then I would definitely look to bet Shane Burgos up to round 1. But, pre-bet, I'm not really looking at anything really. I think it's just going to be a great fight. I think I'm just going to watch it for entertainment purposes, maybe have a live bet on it. But yeah, I think the line's about correct, honestly.